This freaky story happened to me a few years ago. Back when my wife was still my girlfriend, we decided to take an impromptu camping trip. I never camped much, other than a few times with a friend of mine, but my girlfriend used to camp all the time with her family when she was younger, and she really wanted to camp again. She thought it would be a great chance for her and me to spend some time together, away from all the noise of the city that she and I had lived in at the time. She went all out and bought all this awesome camping stuff. Among those items was a nice new tent. It was a bigger tent, especially for two people, but I didn't mind. More room was always okay with me since I was a bigger guy at the time of the story. The one thing I liked about this tent, which I found out later most tents have, was that it had this little window thing on it so you could see outside the tent at night. I knew that it was going to be dark, but just the ability to be able to see and then have the light shine in on us in the morning was a comforting thought for me. We arrived at this desolate location in the afternoon. We were only staying 2 nights, so we wanted to make the best of the trip. That first afternoon we didn't do much, we just kind of chilled, set up the tent, and went to bed early. I loved my little window in the tent. I was able to stare out of it while I was laying in my sleeping bag, and because of where the tent was located, I was able to see the night sky, and it was beautiful. Just as I expected, the light blasted through the window in the morning, and it was almost like waking up in my own bed. We got out of bed early and made the most of the day. We went fishing and hiking and was still able to spend a considerable amount of time just laying around relaxing, reading, and just enjoying the sun. We were on track to having another early night, and I was all right with that. Neither one of us has ever been a night owl, and we were beat from everything we did earlier in the day. We got all cozy in the tent, and I made sure I propped my window screen open. While I was starting to drift off, I thought I noticed something outside the tent. It kind of looked like movement, but I didn't know if I had dozed off for a second or if I really saw something. I sat up, and before I could get a good look, my girlfriend goes, "Did you see that too?" I told her I thought I saw something, but I wasn't sure. We both sat up and stared out of our little tent window. It just looked like a peaceful night. And then my girlfriend gasped. It sounded like air had been sucked out of her. To this day, I still have never seen the expression that she had in that moment. Sitting on a tree branch about 30 or 40 feet away was a person. They were wearing one of those weird fake president masks, and while sitting in the tree, they were sort of just kicking their feet back and forth like a child on a swing would do. We both just sat there like sitting ducks. I was terrified because we hadn't seen one other person the entire time that we were at this campsite, and now all of a sudden, this creep with a mask on was so close to us. I felt like crying, but I was trying to be brave since my girlfriend was already in tears. I know the person wasn't directly doing anything to us, but the unsettling nature of the situation made us both so uncomfortable. We watched the guy for probably about 5 minutes just sitting there in that tree, and then he jumped down. The person still never approached the tent, but that feeling that they were going to rush us at any second never went away. It felt like forever that the person was just pacing around and then finally just stopped. He didn't move forward. He didn't sway. He just stood still like a statue. A couple of minutes later, the person turned around, and now they were facing the tent head on. We could hear them laughing under the mask, and the person started to wave right at us. Even with the mask on, it felt like the person was staring directly at me, and the wave wasn't just a subtle little wave. The person was erratically moving their hand back and forth like they were trying to get their hand to fall off of something. And then the person just stopped waving abruptly, and in a muffled voice that we could barely hear from under that mask, we heard the guy yell, "Bye, guys." And then he literally ran full speed off into the woods. We just sat there and continued staring out of the window all night long. We both may have dozed off at different points, but we mostly stayed awake for the entire night. The guy in the mask never came back, and there was no evidence of where he came from. That was the most disturbing part. Whoever this was, he knew that we were there. We had no idea how long he had been in that tree. It could have been minutes. It could have been hours. I guess all things considered, we're lucky since nothing technically happened to us. Even though we were physically unharmed, mentally this left us messed up for a while, and we're still thinking about it to this day. We've gone camping several times since that night, but from now on, we'll only stay in a cabin with doors that can lock.